In 3, 2, 1, here we go. Hello and welcome to the Avanti Entrepreneur Podcast. I am Dave Bomano, your host today. I have on the show, he's not only a really cool business guy, pretty hip, pretty savvy, and you would never know his age. I'm not going to tell it.
102.
We'll say he looks young. 102. You look good for 102. We have Doug Sandler on the show. Doug, welcome to the show.
Hey, David, thank you for having me. Long overdue on both sides. I think on the Nice Guys on my show and on your show as well. Long overdue. I'm glad to be here.
Very, very much. Yeah. So I was on your podcast. You got me first. You win. I finally got you on mine. And so for those of you that don't know Doug, he's got a lot of great things going on. You may know his podcast. It's one of the top podcasts along with Avanti in the entrepreneur space, called The Nice Guys on Business, right? Mm-hmm. And great podcast. Check it out. But he's got a lot of other things going on that we're going to learn about. I'll read your bio here, Doug, and then we're going to dig into the interrogation. How's that?
Let's do it. I love this. Is this gotcha journalism at its finest? I'm ready.
Totally. I know that you are guilty of something, and I'm going to find out what that is.
Bring it on. Let's go.
So Doug Sandler is an entrepreneur and an industry leader. Very nice. Did your mother write that?
Yeah, and it's funny. You just stole my punchline. I'm like, it was very well written by my mom. Thanks, Dave. I might have stolen it from you originally.
I got you. His book, Nice Guys, finished first as an Amazon #1 ranked Amazon bestseller. As a podcast host of The Nice Guys, Doug has interviewed Gary Vee, Ariana Huffington, John Maxwell, and dozens of other celebrities. Doug is a nationally recognized speaker, writer, founder of Turnkey Podcast Company, which we're going to talk about, providing podcast production, editing, and launch services. His Nice Guys podcast, with nearly 1,000 episodes, has been downloaded 3.2 million times in more than 175 countries.
Crazy.
Are there actually that many countries? I guess I didn't realize.
There has to be, because it's what I go to Libsyn, the host, and that's what it says. So I think it's actually, there's many more than 175, but we don't know how to do the clicking noises on the podcast. So
right.
They don't, I can't speak the language.
My God. That's a lot of countries. That's you're big in Ghana, right? You know, it's got what was that movie, The Breakfast Club, where he was kind of a big deal in the Niagara Falls area, right?
Well, I knew we were popular because we saw as the Somali pirates were jumping off of their ship onto the big cruise ships. We saw them. They had their headphones on. They were playing The Nice Guys on Business. They were trying to learn a little bit more about etiquette. So
very nice. Yeah. Instead, they learned the opposite, right? So
exactly.
So Doug. Great last name. It reminds me of the Sandler Sales Institute. Remember that? Any relation to that guy?
Well, yeah. As a matter of fact, Dave Sandler was my dad. Was this something we should talk about on the show? Yeah, I'd love to.
So like he invented the Sandler Sales Institute?
That was my dad.
I did not know that. I mean, I just assumed it was kind of a coincidental name. I've known you for about 2 years, and I've never asked you about that.
It's interesting that we've never had that conversation too, especially at some of the places that we've had a chance to meet and run into each other through C-Suite and some other stuff. Yeah, my dad was David Sandler, creator of the Sandler sales system, and there's a whole story in that on its own.
Wow, that's big time. He was like the first guy to kind of standardize almost like a franchisable sales system, right? Sales training system and platform.
Well, you had Carnegie, you had Xerox, and you had IBM, and then you had this little guy named Sandler, and he really taught you the common sense way to selling, and that's kind of where my entire system was put together based upon that. My dad unfortunately passed in the mid-90s. Before I really got up and running in business. But yeah, his influence is everywhere in each part of my business now.
That is big time. Yeah. I assumed it was just a coincidence that you had that last name, but there was a guy here in Rochester years back that owned, I believe it was a franchise or a licensee program, but he ran it in Rochester and I took it. A lot of people took it. Very, very good program. So, what a small world. That is so freaking cool.
Well, would you be even more surprised to know that Adam Sandler is my son? Just a different Adam Sandler.
No. Oh, is that right? Oh, my God. Okay. You named him Adam. How funny.
Well, I was before the other Adam Sandler. And my son actually goes on a lot of his social handles as not the famous one. So
right.
But yeah, he's Adam Sandler, related to Dave Sandler, and I had a whole bunch of fame. And then there's me. I don't understand what happened.
And there's you. Well, you're kind of a big deal. 3.2 million views. Big deal in Ghana, and very proud of you.
Thanks, Dave. And I think after talking about my son and my dad, I think the interview's over. I appreciate your time.
I'm dropping the mic. That was fantastic. So, what was funny? One more thing about Adam Sandler is if you look at my high school picture and you look at his high school picture. I actually posted his high school picture on Facebook one year as a joke. I'm like, oh my God, look at my hair in high school. And most people didn't even flinch. They just thought it was me because we could have been twins and brothers in high school, So
well, yeah, I can see you with the higher fro. I can kind of see that. You keep it nicely cropped right now. At least, Hey, listen, I like your hair. It's either turning gray or turning loose. That's the way I feel, and I'd much rather have it turning gray than turning loose. So I appreciate that too.
Absolutely, yeah. I cut it. I definitely, the afro was a big deal and pretty cool in the '80s, but now that I'm somewhat of a professional, I do quaff it a little bit.
Well, you're not a bad looking guy for 37. I mean, really, come on, let's just talk about it there.
I'll talk to you all day. Thank you. So very cool. Well, let's get into the meat and potatoes because you are doing really well. I mean, 3.2 million downloads, 175 countries, really doing well, not only with that podcast, but we were in the pre-talk. I also found out that you have other multiple podcasts, and you also have a company that trains people on how to start, maintain, and grow a podcast, right? So tell us about, if you don't mind, your other podcasts, and then I would love to learn a little bit more about your current business, Turnkey Productions, Turnkey Podcast, right?
Yeah.
And then I want to back up and I want to hear about Little Doug. Like, how did you get to where you are today?
Understand. Well, all of the other shows I do, they're kind of like, I'm like a living petri dish. I try to figure out different ways to bring other sides of my life into the podcast space. As a podcast producer, I want to have the experience that each one of my clients have. So rather than just a business show, I have another show. I own a 65 Ford Mustang, and I created a show called Ford Mustang, The Early Years. And that is a passion project. There's no money that exchanges hands on that show. I just like to see the community grow and the questions that we get and run into the same issues that I do as a business podcast too. So that's one of the podcasts called Ford Mustang, The Early Years. I co-host a show with my partner, JJ Flazanes, called Women, Men, and Relationships. I love doing that one. That's a relationship-based show. I have several clients that hire me to host their show for them because they don't have the skill set to do the hosting, but they want a show. So a couple of those, I have a show called Human with Resources is another. We have a couple of in-house shows. I have a show that closely mirrors the TEDx talks called SEDx. I have another show, very short format show called the BizWiz Podcast. Same 5 to 10 questions that I ask on every show from one to the other. And then I just have a play podcast, and I'm going to say the word, but it's the Nice Guy Effery. I'm sure you know what the F stands for. Yes. And then I have my anchor show called the Nice Guys on Business Podcast. So I think if you add all those up, it's 6 or 7 shows that are along the way. And I don't think, I have another show called Conscious Selling as a partnership with another company that I do some work with. So all of those things combined, I just like to see what podcasting is all about and do a little experimentation myself with each one of these. And each one seems to pick up a little audience and a little bit of interest along the way as we go.
That sounds insane to me, but somehow you seem to be managing it all.
Well, I really do. I really do subscribe to the school of stay in your zone of genius. And my zone of genius is not doing the spreadsheets and any of the back end work or any of the production myself. We have a team that does all of the production. My zone of any duty of I like building relationships and I like selling. And these shows that I have that are business shows give me an opportunity to do both of those things and not worry about all the back end stuff. Geez, if I wanted to produce a show, I would become I would be an editor. And I don't want to do that, but I love to have a team that does it. Initially, I went in with a partner that has a zone of genius of audio engineering. And so that made it very, very easy for me to step into my zone of genius. So, a year or so ago, we just decided we're only going to do what we know what we do best. And outside of that, we're going to hire people to do the other stuff. And it requires a deep swallow every once in a while when you have to bring on somebody and pay for a full-time, wages. But once you get business cranking, I'm telling you, there's no better way to do it than to stay in your zone of genius.
Yeah, that's awesome. So your revenue stream comes from what, podcast sponsorships and then also the training company?
So I would say the training company is number one by far, and sponsorships is a distant second. So a lot of people think that you make money from podcasting by getting sponsors and advertisers, and that's really just one very small way in order to do it. As a matter of fact, most people can't make enough money through sponsorship and advertising to support themselves, let alone support a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So we really don't focus very much on the sponsorship and advertising aspect of growing your show. We really focus more on the business development and lead generation that a podcast can help you with.
Yep. And that is like, so I have a podcast, and one of the ways I have driven some revenue from my podcast, yes, I have some sponsors, but like you said, it's not a huge driving force of revenue. A lot of it is collaborations, partnerships, and just business deals with a lot of my guests, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Building your network is key, which is why the Nice Guys on Business podcast is right now a 3-day-a-week show. And we have our side show of that called the Nice Guys Effery. And that is a 2-day-a-week. So in 5 episodes a week, we create the Nice Guys on Business. And it does allow us to grow our network, which is a huge way that we use in going into joint venture partnerships, associations, affiliate relationships with those organizations or those people. Also selling stuff and having a call to action for your community is another really big way of growing you're a coach. If you're a coach, who would be the best person to buy your services? People that already know, like, and trust you. And those are the people that are in your community that you're growing that are listening to your show.
Yeah.
And then final way, the biggest way for us is we work on this guest to client conversion, which means we invite people on our show who we feel would be an ideal fit for the services that we provide. It allows me to build a one-on-one relationship with them very quickly because in their mind, there is no sales process that's going on. So it's not like we're trying to trick them onto the show. But what we want to do is we want to understand them a little bit deeper so that we can figure out if they're a good qualified guest for the services that we offer. We don't offer podcasting as a way just to make somebody famous. That's not what we're looking to do. We're using podcasting as a marketing tool. So if somebody believes in the new media space and they want to come on our podcast, we already have an advantage because we realize that they believe in podcasting as a way to market what they do because they're coming on our show. So all we now have to do is flip the coin and say, how would you like to be able to create a system like we have to develop business for or develop leads for your business and sell the stuff that you have to either your clients or your community? It's very rare that somebody says, no, I'm not interested in hearing about it. It's whether they want to pay the price tag for it is a different story. So then we get through that hurdle as well oftentimes.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So let's back up. Lil Doug. Sounds like a rapper name, right? Lil Doug. What was Little Doug like, and what was your foray into your career in the business world, and now what you're doing?
So in 1984, coming out of college, I created an entertainment company, and I was literally a bar DJ. And I took that bar DJ experience and I went into the social market, which was a lot more lucrative than the bar market. So I've spent the last 30 years as a bar mitzvah MC. That would be a guy that would go out to bar mitzvahs and entertain and MC the entire event, playing games with the kids, playing music for the dance floor, getting the dance floor packed and having people have a good time.
Yeah.
At around 47, I decided I'm not sure how many more years I am able to do the cha-cha slide or the booty call or the electric slide or the Cupid shuffle anymore. I said, I need to start working on what is my next plan. So I met with
Can I say you were getting a little verklempt?
Yeah, I was getting a little verklempt. That's right.
All right.
I was a little tired of doing it. And it was one of those things where I said, I got to figure out what's that next step. So I met with a financial planner and who I had known for decades and who manages to, holds on to the 3 cents that I've made over those 30 years of doing that. And he said, hey, it would probably make sense if you got into something very closely aligned to that. And I wanted to get into the professional speaking world. So I started a professional speaking journey. As a matter of hiring a speaking coach to help me do that, she said I should write a book, which I did. Nice Guys Finish First. The book did very well, but it only did very well because I created another platform called a podcast, and I really wasn't even familiar with podcasting in 2005 when we got started. But I thought it would be a good opportunity to get into this space, and started promoting the book. And that was really the beginning of this whole idea of creating an opportunity, a marketing channel for the things that I do. And 3 or 4 years into the run, we said it makes a lot of sense for us to probably open up the doors to doing podcast production because people keep asking us, how do you get this many downloads? How are you making so many sales? How are you creating products and services? How are you building your community? All of the things that we now teach as a part of a system. So it was a great handshake in going from one step to the other. So I spent several years as a professional speaker and discovered that it was just as fun to be able to make money in a t-shirt and pajamas, hanging out in the third bedroom of my, the spare bedroom of my house, rather than traveling all across the country and making the same amount of money, to speak for an hour. I love doing this, and I don't have to leave my house to do this.
Yep. Yeah, that's good. It seems to agree with you.
I love it. I love it. I drive, I'm about 1.5 miles from the Pacific Ocean. So I get in my car every once in a while or on my bicycle and I ride down to the ocean. I hang out there. I come back to my house. I do an interview or two. I make a sales call or two, and my day is over. And it's not that simple, but because there was a lot to get here. But the beauty of being here now is this business will keep, we get 20 to 30 applications every week to get people for people to come on our show. How great would it be for those that are in your listening audience, David? How great would it be for your community to be able to have people that are not actually applying to be guests for their podcast, but how would you like to have people that are applying to be clients? So that's how I look at every application that I get. They're applying to be a client. They just don't realize it.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the benefit that podcasting brings to you as someone that's in business development, because how hard is it to pick up a phone and make a cold call to somebody that's, let's say, senior VP of sales, and you want to get them you want to get your training system into their company so that they can improve their employees' performance. It's so much easier, instead of making that call, to say, hey, senior VP of sales, how would you like to come on my podcast? I'd love to chat with you a little bit about what you do and how you do it and some of your successes. Man, that is the easiest phone call to possibly ever make.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a great way to look at it. And then what's great is, it probably doesn't even feel like sales because you're helping them, right? You're helping them. It's a great marketing tool to grow their business, just like writing a book, just like doing speaking, right? Like, if a lot of times, I probably shouldn't let this out of the bag, but a lot of times if it's the right conference and audience, right, at my expenses, I'll speak for free because it's what a great marketing opportunity. I get to talk to 200, prospects, right? Or whatever it is.
Well, even get to the next level where you're actually paying to be on that stage. Right. I have many good friends that because they are so good at what they do, that they would, let's say you have 150 people that are potentially qualified to buy the stuff that you have. I would pay to be on that stage. If I know that I'm going to walk out of that room with, let's say, $60,000 in business, and it cost me 10 grand to be on that stage. If somebody said, hey, David, I'm going to give you 60 grand. It's going to cost you $10,000 to make it. And it's almost a guaranteed thing based upon the past track record that you have. Would you do it?
Right.
So it makes sense to be able to even get to the next step where you're actually paying to be on people's stages. And that is really the value that podcasting can provide, or business development through this program that we've created can provide.
Excellent. So I love to ask this question because everybody has a story. So people watching this right now, you look fantastic, right? People like looking at your story. Doug is he's a 24/7 superstar, right? But I love to ask this question because everybody has at least one story. Tell us about a time that was not going so well, that, like that crashed and almost burned, behind the curtain story that you're not putting on the fridge, right? But you were able to, get through it, roll your sleeves up, build character. And yeah, it was hell to get through it, but it made you stronger in the long run.
So two really quick stories to share. In 1992, when I was still in the DJ business, I did a job down in New Orleans, and this client paid me very good money, thousands of dollars, to fly down from Baltimore, DC area down to New Orleans to do a job for them. And talk about turning a nightmare into your biggest win ever. Well, the show completely flopped. It was horrible. The kids were drinking at the bar, lighting toilet paper on fire in the bathrooms. They were, everything that you could possibly sucking helium out of the balloons, everything that you could possibly imagine within the first 15 minutes of the event.
Yeah.
So I realized after that event, and refunding that client money after they flew me down and everything, I realized after that event that there was something that I had to learn from that event. And what I learned was I had to invest time, energy, and effort in clients. I had to inspire them to take action. I actually had to execute a plan excellently. So the premise of that entire fail that failure in 1992 became invest, inspire, and execute, became the three points of my keynote speech that I have delivered probably 150 times in the last 5 years. So talk about turning a horrible experience into a great one. The second really quick story is when I reinvented myself in 2013, about 6 years ago now, almost 7 years ago now. Talk about going from being a complete success at something to being a complete unknown in another. I mean, in the podcasting space, in the author space, in the speaking world, I had to go from making anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 a job as a high-end bar mitzvah MC in the DC marketplace to being a guy that was begging to get on stages as a professional speaker. That will really humble the crap out of you. And when that happens to you, when you're going through a career reinvention, just know that it is a part of your journey and the lessons that you're learning along the way. And it's okay to go through all that stuff. Just know that it's impossible for you to recreate fame and fortune and all the things that you need, or notoriety or money or influence or a community building or anything that you need. You're going to have to start over again if you're reinventing yourself. Expect it. And that was a really, really valuable lesson that I learned from the transition from my last career, 30 years long, to this career as professional speaker and now podcast producer.
Yeah, God bless you. I mean, look at Madonna. You're the Madonna of the business world, right? Constant reinvention.
Okay, all right.
I mean, my first business, it was a printed magazine in Rochester, New York for high school students, right? And then, of course, we had to have a website. Of course, we had to have a digital edition. Of course, we started, doing events. And
right.
then of course, we retired the print and put it all online, right? And then, even that business changed because the whole education world got so different. It wasn't fun anymore for me.
Right.
So spun that off. And then Avanti, right, 3 years ago now. And Avanti means move forward in Italian. My magazine was called Next Step. So I was all this forward movement names.
Right.
It was all about reinvention. And that's okay. That's okay. I've known a lot of successful people that they do a gig for 5 or 6 years, and then they move on to the next thing, right? They max out their superpowers, right?
You look at all the serial entrepreneurs. Part of their superpower is starting, growing, scaling, selling. It's like, okay, that's it. I hate that. I don't want to do any of that starting, growing, scaling. And I mean, the selling part sounds great, but you got to go through the starting, growing, scaling aspect of it. And that part is really, it's hard. It really is hard. It takes a beating on your brain, especially if you're a guy like me that wants those ego strokes every once in a while. And it takes a long time to get them, especially when you're new at it. So just keep that in mind as you're growing, starting and scaling your business. If you ever want to get to a point where you can even think about selling it, you need to do those first three things first. It does not come in the other order.
Right. Yep. Very cool. So, love this question for successful people like yourself. What are your daily, weekly habits that keep you, first of all, sane with everything going on in your life, and successful?
Well, I'm a really big believer in a few really basic principles, and these can be applied to really any business that you are running. And part of those are this thing called the Nice Guy 30, and there are really 5 aspects of the Nice Guy 30 that I've always been a part of. And that is return your phone calls, return your emails, be on time every time, stop over-promising and under-delivering, instead exceed expectations, and reach out a couple of times a day to people you haven't communicated with in the last 30 days. I mean, those 5 principles, and I didn't even realize we were going to talk about the book or the philosophy of how I grew my business, but those 5 philosophies and those 5 principles have been things that I've done every day for the last, since 1984 when I started my DJ business. And by doing those things, you will be successful. It's amazing. If you just show up on time, return your calls and your emails. Well, they didn't have email in 1984, so it was probably the Nice Guy 4 instead of, so right. Do that for 30 days and you will be highly successful no matter what you do.
Yeah. And you do that very well. I mean, we met a couple of years ago because of Jeffrey Hazlett, who's been on my podcast through the C-suite. And right away, I felt, our first phone call, I felt like, I like this guy, Well, and I felt bad because you had reached out a couple of times to some other people on Jeffrey's team who were either non-responsive or not giving you the answers that you wanted. And I said, not that I want to be a yes guy, but I wanted to be a guy that was at least, okay, he needs a little hand-holding through this because he doesn't know how
that system works.
Right.
Their system of doing things. And to all fairness to Jeffrey, this is not slamming Jeffrey at all or any other company, but it's not your responsibility as someone that's communicating with another organization to know what their system is. It's their responsibility to set the level of expectation. If you're a client or prospective client, they should say something like, hey, we apologize for not being able to get back to you as quickly as, in the next 24 hours, but we will get to your call in the next 7 days, or we'll respond to your email in the next 7 days. Just setting a level of expectation with people in your life is so essential. And that way people get to know you and they know what you're all about. So my feeling was, hey, it's not, yes, I liked you and you were a great guy right out of the gate, but I wanted to be respectful of your time and not have you spin your wheels and waste your time with going through the process, not just with C-suite, but with any organization. I would hope that they would set up a proper expectation for what you should be doing with them.
Yep. I love that. Yeah. And here we are. I'm not dealing with the C-suite anymore. God bless them. But you and I are still friends. Love it.
Well, right. And I think that that ends up that is what ends up happening with many organizations that are out there. Again, nothing about C-suite, because I think many organizations run it this way, is that you're going to find people within the community that you're just going to be attracted to. And, in my particular case with you, I know there's probably a business venture that we're going to do. There's probably going to be shared leads that we have. There's probably going to be opportunity in there. And I'm not looking at it as, I don't think that you are, because I'm pretty sure I've gotten to know you over the last couple of years. I think you lead with, how can I serve? And the second thing is, if there's money in it, great. I never worry about the money up front. I always know the money is going to come if you build the relationship.
And that's the value. Viktor Frankl, he says, create value and success will find you, right?
I love that. And
don't chase the money. Don't chase success. Create value. Focus on that, like you did, and it will find you. And I'm totally going to help you. Like when you have, I'm smiling when I say this, when you have your Nice Guys event celebrating your first 1,000 guests, I'm going to speak for free there. I'm going to do whatever I can to make that event great. So there awesome. You
go. well, thanks. Well, we are coming up quickly on episode 1000. I think we're at 962 as of the recording of this was today. So we're only a few weeks away from episode 1000, and I'm excited to get there. I don't know quite what we're going to do at 1000. We kind of celebrated the first 100 and then 200, and beyond that, we really didn't do a lot. But it's just another day, another episode, and another download. So and we love doing it. So it's our pleasure to provide the content.
You can tell. Well, like you were alluding to before, you're in the zone of your superpower, right? And you're just creating value with that.
Thanks.
So before we go, I love this question too. If you were to go back in history and you could spend time with anybody famous from history, who would that be, and why?
Well, I'm going to keep it close to the vest here, because I think or close to the family here, because I think it would be a really great conversation now, knowing what I know about business and didn't really have the opportunity to do it. My dad passed in 96, as I said. I would love just to take my dad out to lunch and just have a conversation with him about the growing of the business, the how-tos of the business. He's with me every day as I make decisions about the stuff that I do on a day-to-day basis. And I always think about, when opportunity comes along, Dad, is this a good decision? Is this a good way to go? And he guides me. Sometimes I think he guides me to make the wrong decision, so I learn the lesson along the way, which is just as valuable, maybe even more so than the correct decision. But fortunately, I've made more good decisions than bad decisions, and landed in a very comfortable spot. So I'm not complaining.
Right. That is a great answer. And usually I say, no, you can't say your parents or your grandparents. It's got to be somebody famous. But you kind of got both birds with one stone there, So
well, okay. So I'll take it a different direction though. I'd like to really would enjoy having a conversation with guys like Dale Carnegie or Napoleon Hill or Henry Ford, just to understand how they were so advanced in their thinking, or were they just regular business guys thinking this is the way that we're going to run this business.
Yeah. I was listening to, I have a CD in my car, The Greatest Secret, Earl Nightingale's his original recording on radio when he gave that speech. I listened to it a couple times a month. I would have loved to meet him. That been cool or what?
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that are like that I'm thinking, I wonder if they're nice, if they were nice people. I wonder if they were like a pain in the ass. I wonder if they, so I know that doesn't have a lot of bearing on whether they were successful or successful or failures in business. Obviously, those guys were ultimately successful. But for me, it's like, it was being nice, courteous, kind, all of those things. Did that play a role in their building their business?
Right.
I don't know.
I would imagine so. I'm sure they had traits of that, right? At least they could pull out their charisma when they needed to, right?
Right. Maybe so.
Yeah. Very good. Well, Doug, this has been a total pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm so glad we finally got to do this. If our Avanti family listeners want to get in touch, learn more about you, etc., what's the best way to do that?
Best way to get to us, to get information about what we do or how we do it is, and there is a free gift that we have, 5 ways to make money podcasting. It's just turnkeypodcast.com/gift. That's all they got to do.
And we will have that in the show notes as well. And if they want to get in touch with you directly, they can find you on there too.
Yeah, there's a contact page, or they can just reach out to me. It's Doug@turnkeypodcast.com, and I'll make sure you have that link as well.
Beautiful. Thanks, Doug. Doug, thank you so much again. I wish you continued massive success.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you having me on the show, and looking forward to getting some good comments back from your community. Thanks.
Absolutely. And thank you, Avanti family, for listening and or watching. We're here every week, every Wednesday morning. There's a new episode. We're coming up on 3 years of doing this. Now, I've only been once a week, so I'm not near 1,000 yet. I think you used to be 5 days a week, right?
Yeah, well, we kind of loosely have a 5-day-a-week show, 3 on business and 2 just kind of shooting the stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think I'm coming up on like 170 episodes. So, I'm
That's
no Doug,
awesome, man.
I'm Doug, but I'm doing okay.
Hey, listen, you got past the first 10, which is where most people quit. So if you've gotten past 10 episodes, you're actually statistically you're going to stay in the business a lot longer.
Yeah. I did hear that the average podcaster lasts 12 episodes, right? So
is that nuts?
It makes it easy for guys like you and me to be successful, right?
Agreed, man. Agreed.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Hey, to learn more about Avanti and what we do, go to AvantiEntrepreneur.com. All my podcasts are there, the past episodes, this one with the show notes and links, the whole works, AvantiEntrepreneur.com. Make it a great day and stay awesome.